Hi and good evening, everyone. My name is Albert, and this is Vlogs About Nothing. Thank you very much for taking the time out of your busy Wednesday to join me. I really appreciate that. Tonight, I want to talk about something kind of important, you feel me? But before we get to that, again, I do want to thank all the new subs and viewers here at Vlogs About Nothing. It's a very inclusive community. We actively, publicly state that we want everyone to be a part of this experience. And again, I can't tell y'all enough how appreciative I am for you guys tuning in and watching these videos. You know, we're talking about nothing. So I would expect that, a few people might want to tune in. Tonight we're talking about anti malaria drug treatment mefloquine and its subsequent disastrous side effects. But before we get into that, again, it's important to sort of define and or understand what we're talking about. All the lighthearted jokes, everything, the sidebars, is to just sort of make casual conversation extemporaneously when talking about important stuff, in a nothing kind of a way. That's kind of the specialty. So, the anti malaria drug treatment, mefloquine, link in the description below. There's a really, really, really good documentary on Endeavor about the anti malaria drug treatment, mefloquine. And, most recently it was prevalent for COVID 19 when then former President Trump recommended hydrochloroquine as a treatment for COVID 19. Or do you guys remember what he called the Wuhan virus or the China virus? Or, former President Trump, we could break the ice all night long with some of the antics that the man performed in office. And all of them are actually surprisingly funny. And I think what differentiates me from other people is that, Trump had always been sort of a contender until, he decided to commit treason or whatever. I'm just saying there's lines, and sometimes, people cross them. And I think when you turn your back on the country, it's a big problem. And we actually have a whole video about this topic in a loose bout kind of a way coming up tonight in one of the four streams. But until then, let's continue to talk about, or introduce rather, what malaria is. So, malaria is a parasitic disease transmitted by mosquitoes mostly to human beings, not from human to human. And so it's a parasite that, again, is transmissible from like a mosquito to a person, and its side effects can be paralyzing and all the way up to death. So the thing with malaria is that it's still pretty prevalent around the world. It often finds its home in tropical climates and in underdeveloped nations, not clean water, so forth, and not any anti malaria drug treatment, which is ironic in that there are still, according to the World Health Organization, as of 2022, 269 million cases of malaria throughout the world in 85 countries, and 668 deaths were reported by the World Health Organization in the year 2022. And so, comparatively speaking, right, we want zero deaths, but 269 million cases with just under 1,000 people suffering, you know, death. I mean, again, you want that number to be zero, and it should be zero, considering the fact that in the modern world, malaria is both treatable and preventable. And the thing is, with treating malaria or preventing yourself from getting malaria, both soldiers all over the world and civilians, when traveling abroad, take mefloquine or a kind of chloroquine, a kind of quin, as it would be. And again, I say this with a smile because I think that's literally Quine. It's a part of the quinins family, which comes from a natural substance. I'm not the dude to explain it, but there's a really smart guy in the documentary below who does a wonderful job of explaining exactly where mefloquine and hydrochloroquine and chloroquine comes from and their derivatives, and how negative side effects have been reported for a little over 100 years now, and we continue to prescribe it to mostly our soldiers and civilians that are traveling abroad. There are cases of people who have just taken one pill of mefloquine and have had psychotic episodes. Now, here's the question, and I mean, here's the problem therein is that with the small number of people who don't die, right, from, and I say small number because remember, subtract the 668 from the 269 million, that those people in between, those people who've had malaria or, to prevent malaria spread, are taking the mefloquine, and it has caused, just from a couple of doses and sometimes just one, people to break down psychotically. And this has again been reported since the army had started issuing prescription mefloquine to active duty troops abroad during World War One, as well as all other developed nations that have defense departments. It's Australia, the United Kingdom, France. I mean, this is a worldwide problem as it concerns the prescription or prescribing from doctors mefloquine without having a real conversation about how its side effects can include and lead up to psychotic breaks, in that people who've experienced no mental health issues in their entire life, after having been exposed to a dosage, again, sometimes even just one, of mefloquine to prevent getting malaria while traveling abroad, I think that there have been many instances of this specific problem trying to be addressed for close to 2 decades, since problems were reported in the modern day nearly 2 decades ago about its first reports of civilians specifically. And because remember, military and defense departments all over the world have been reporting the negative side effects of mefloquine for about a century. And yet we've still continued to prescribe these medications to active duty troops and soldiers going abroad. Hydrochloroquine, again, is a part of the quin family, and I encourage you to check out that link because it's a fascinating explanation about where mefloquine is derived from hydrochloroquine, where it comes from chloroquine. It's super interesting stuff. But again, they're all synthetic pharmaceutical made compounds that give you, what was that natural substance before, because there was a medication for malaria before World War One. And so thank you for taking the time out of your night to join me. I really appreciate it. I think talking about some of these things, sort of broaden our horizon, as it would be when it comes to passing along information that's relevant. And while we maintain our best here on the program to talk about absolutely nothing, we subsequently delve into some pretty serious topic and subject matter, and I appreciate everybody coming along for the ride. So, good attitude, thumbs up, you feel me? I am obviously just extemporaneously speaking in an improvisational kind of way to y'all. And honestly, on sidebar, closing the video, I think that mefloquine, hydrochloroquine, chloroquine, these are some serious medications that obviously help people. I mean, they obviously work, but are its effects worth, is it better to look for alternative treatments so that, there are zero deaths and, the eradication perhaps of malaria? I've not really heard any of those conversations, like with polio and things, like a vaccination that eradicates disease. I think that's something that in the modern 21st century people are really interested in hearing about, is the eradication of diseases, and the understanding that from the knowledge that we've obtained about all of our, silly mistakes, all of which, like occur for hundreds of years apparently before people are like, hey, maybe mefloquine and the quin family isn't the best way to, isn't the best compound to synthetically produce and prescribe to people, for the simple reason that it's sort of a zero risk game, and that, you want to minimize risk in all of the medications prescribed to everybody all over the world. Again, eradication is something, it's like proliferation. It's something that escapes people's terminology in terms of, while I would love to just, treat cancer, right? I would also, I would moreover argue that I would like to cure cancer. The eradication of things that are bad to human beings is something high on the priority list. Obviously, for myself, in my own opinion, biologically speaking, I think disease and all disease is something that you know isn't going to magically be solved, but can without a doubt scientifically be thoroughly researched and then used to everyone's best advantage. Unfortunately, we live in a capitalistic world. And the communist countries all over the world are just mostly all terrible, right? And I'm talking to you, China, with all due respect, because I love Chinese people. I'm just learning about them and the behavior of the CCP in particular, right? So this isn't a shot aimed at them, moreover, as it is the CCP. You're making communism look like, a real, real bad thing here. So there's that. Anyways, sidebar. Hope you guys have a wonderful night. Thanks again for joining me, and we'll see everybody on the next few videos. Bye.